What's up, guys? Quick question. How many of you remember your high school days? I know I do. And when it comes to this particular video, which, first off, thanks for clicking on this and very much appreciated, like always. Like I said, for many of us who are from the older generation, so to young kids, sit back and relax and just watch what may unfold right now. And I'll be sharing 4 stories when it comes to my experience when it comes to going to an overseas high school for the better part of 2.5 years when my dad was stationed in Ceiba, Puerto Rico. So, story number 1 is what I like to call field trip gone wrong. Now, everything went smooth after we left the confines of state of Puerto Rico, the military station known as Roosevelt Roads. Now, on the way there, awesome. Nothing to complain about. Smooth ride. As we got into the mall itself, Miss Rashid, our teacher, our escort, or our basic leader for the field trip, gave us a time and a location so that when we all met up, we'd go to the bus and then we'd head back to school. I'm the type of person now that, even though, and also back then, that half listens. So I was in my own little world at the time. So when I was in the mall itself, I was walking up and down, looking at other stuff like video games and probably toys. Yeah, I don't know why, but I still like toys. But I call them memorabilia now. So for us adults, it's memorabilia, collectibles. So I ended up buying a hat, Atlanta Braves hat. So yeah, I'm a ride or die Braves fan.
Swung right, Rebel fan! One run again! Here comes Green! Here's the front of the plate! He is safe!
So even though they didn't make playoffs, which stinks, they'll do it next year with that young team they have and Freddie Freeman leading the way. Now, on back to the story. I lost track of time, and when you do that, you suddenly something inside you freaks out, but you try to stay calm as possible. So me trying to stay as calm as possible, walk out the nearest exit, thinking that it's possibly the one that your class went through when you entered the first time. I was wrong. I walked outside, no bus out in front. So I walked back inside, looking for the exit that I thought was the right one. Yeah. Now the second exit I walked out of, I found myself literally in the back of the mall. And that's when I started freaking out. And when you freak out, you have no sense of train of thought. So I walked back up. I started running like a power walking and freaking out at the same time. So, and for some reason, I saw a cop, a mall cop, and just power walked past him. And I just kept walking, walking, walking. And then I turned around and I go back the other direction I came from, walking past the same mall cop that I just passed. I did this at least 4 times, and the cop kept looking at me, and until the point where I just stopped, hung my head, turned around, and just looked up at the cop and walked up to the cop actually, and just asked him, "Do you know where the exit is?" And the cop just smiled at me and he said, "Are you with a school?" And he said, "Yeah." And then they just led me to the right door, and then I walked out, and there was the bus, and everybody looking out the window and pointing at me and saying, "Come on!" And needless to say, that long walk back to the bus was embarrassing. I entered the bus, found a seat, and looked down, and kept my head down for the rest of the trip on the way back to school. But and that's my story. The field trip gone wrong. And even though it was embarrassing back then, I find it humorous now. So here's story number 2, Prank the Slacker. And side note, to this day, he is still known as Slacker because that's how we've known him since high school. So if you ever see him down the street, just yell out Slacker, he'll respond. So anyways, let me set the scene for you. It was during a time when Valentine's Day was rolling around, and the whole school was sending out Valentine's Day cards to those who they love, girlfriends, boyfriends, the usual sappy things when Valentine's Day rolls around. Like I said, now for others, they use it as the opportunity to prank people, and I took that opportunity to prank Slacker or Ricky or whichever. Ricky, Slacker, Lumpy, yeah, that's also his nickname. Anyways, when during that time he was, I think, either dating or seeing or just hanging out with another girl, a mutual friend of ours, a fellow classmate who they're now cool with. They're after talking with him when we had a reunion a couple months ago. So they're so cool. So they're both good. Now, anyways, here's the backstory to the note. I wrote it in a way that my intention was to freak him out, and it did, because at the time they were just hanging out as friends. I believe I may have got this wrong, but hopefully not. They were just friends, or they were just close to being boyfriend or girlfriend. Who knows? But when he read the note, the look on his face, the eyes widened, and I busted out laughing inside, not outwardly but inwardly. And I almost laughed to the point where I said, "Gotcha," but I didn't. I let him stew for a second as he was sitting there with me alongside Martin Garcia at the time. So rest in peace, that dude right there. He passed away, and we all miss him. So Martin, you're in our thoughts, buddy. Anyways, getting back to that, I let him stew for a second, and then he was. I could see some visible sweat going on because he wasn't. They were. He considered her and that our mutual friend of ours, a classmate, as you will, just a friend for right now, and he wasn't really thinking about having a relationship right now at the time, and at that point, I just sprung saying, you've been gotcha," and he was very relieved, and thankfully I didn't get beat up by him or Martin, or but it was all in good fun. But that's my story of Prank the Slacker. Here's my third story entitled "Blame It on the Rain."
Blame it on the rain that was falling, falling. Blame it on the stars.
It involves Ricky, Lumpy, King Slacker, Slacker. Call him what you will. I call him Slacker. So it was raining. I remember it was raining very hard that day at Roosevelt Roads. And if you know about Roosevelt Roads, there was a hill that goes down towards the gym. So I think it was a free period or probably on a break, and it was probably after lunch. I think it was after lunch, and we were all just standing around and not trying to get soaked from the rain, and we were basically just chatting about when one of the students, I think it was Donald Thomas, and some other student had the bright idea of just going down the hill and while it was raining and just have fun and sliding it down. And if you know the layout to Roosevelt Roads, there was a hill that goes down leading to the gym. So suddenly a whole bunch of students started going down the hill, and then not a teacher in sight. And that was bad because everybody just stood there watching, but then they had the bright idea of wanting to do it as well because it was so much fun. And I was standing there, and I suddenly looked at Ricky, and then I was looking down the hill, and I looked at Ricky again, and he looked at me, and I looked down the hill, and I looked back at Ricky, and he was looking down the hill and looked back at me, and then all of a sudden he just does this, and then runs down the hill and then slides down, and I just stood there and like, holy. And then I look around, and everybody's like, oh, they were screaming or just basically awing at what is going on with all the students sliding down the hill. So, and needless to say, they all got in trouble. And I know this because he told me as he along with Donald were sent to the office, and they talked with our principal at the time, Mr. Bickford. So yeah, that's my story of Blame It on the Rain. And finally, story number 4. what I like to call movie theater madness. Now, here's a backstory to this one. My dad would be stationed going back to Florida, and my buddies Ricky and Martin planned for me to have to pick me up at the hotel because my house was already packed up, so we were staying at a hotel, so a local hotel in Ceiba. So he picks me up, they pick me up, and we head out just driving aimlessly around, just having fun like boys do. Now we planned on going to go see a movie at the local theater. The movie was Disney's Iron Will, and from what I can remember, it was a good movie. We didn't stay there long, and the reason being is we got kicked out. So here's why. We were sitting there watching the first half of the movie from the beginning, and then after a while, Ricky and Martin started basically got up, and then I followed them, and we headed outside just to talk and chit chat or be goofy or whatever high schoolers do. And then after a while, we went back inside, and this would happen at least 3 or 4 times. But if you talk to Ricky, he'll probably say at least 5 or 6 times. But it's difference of opinion on how many times we went back inside. Now, after the third or fourth time, the manager was getting annoyed, and he ended up kicking us out because we were, according to him, we were disturbing the other audience members enjoying the film. And truth be told, we were, because we were laughing, we were having a good time. And I would actually see the rest of Iron Will in its entirety when the movie came out on video at Blockbuster Video. And yeah, that's how old I am, kids. When that a time during when Blockbuster Video ruled the planes across the United States all over, and probably overseas as well. Now it's Netflix and movies online and whatnot. And yeah, anyways, at the end of my day with those two guys, it was memorable. The night was ended with us going to a bar, but as I'm not a drinker, but those two had beers. I had a Coke or Sprite or whatever, and we just sat there and just reminisced and talked about hanging out with each other for those 2.5 years and how memorable it was. And yeah, it was a good time. And hopefully you enjoy traveling down memory lane with me, as it was a good catharsis on looking back and thinking back on the good times back in Roosevelt Roads. Now, unfortunately, it's a bittersweet situation as Roosevelt Roads is now closed, and I know some people are trying to have it reopened, but looking back on the videos and the pictures of what looks like now, as it's like run down, bushes all over the place, and weeds, good stuff. But in our heart of hearts, we still have it in our hearts and our memories. So it looks sad for us students who enjoyed that place for so long, and hopefully they hopefully there will be a time where one of the students will reopen it and will get back to its former glory that we remember. And that's pretty much it. All 4 stories. I know there's more stories out there for me personally, but I'll just share these 4 stories for now. And like always, do me a favor, hit comment, go give a comment, hit like, subscribe, and under the video description, under this video description area, go to my social media links, Yoda's and Blogspot page, my Facebook, Twitter, Chuck Fanfiction, and Deviant Art page where all my artwork is at. So, like always, have a good day. Hope you enjoy the next video this comes out, and hope you have a good day as well. See you later, guys. Bye.